All right, folks, we're going to go ahead and get started. We're going to start with a little video.
To me, TechArb is a box of crayons. Box of crayons that offer many different colors that I can utilize to shape my own creations with.
If I had to describe TechArb in a few words, I think more than anything it's a community, and it serves as a connector to help students navigate the entrepreneurial ecosystem.
The network that I've gained through TechArb and the skills that I've learned have been invaluable, and I will carry them with me, honestly, for the rest of my life.
All right, thank you. Well, thank you all for coming. I'm Jonathan Fay. I'm the Interim Executive Director of the Center for Entrepreneurship, and thank you all for coming to TechArb's Demo Day. As all of you know, TechArb is the Student Venture Accelerator, and really is kind of a capstone experience for those students that are trying to launch ventures coming out of their undergraduate and graduate careers, and we're going to hear from a lot of them today. And TechArb really is, I'm very proud to say, is a joint venture. It's a great partnership between Center for Entrepreneurship in the College of Engineering and the Zell Lawyer Institute in the Ross School of Business. And I think those two organizations work together to try to make TechArb a great experience for our students across the campus. So when Ryan asked me to give some remarks, I thought, what can I say to the crowd? And I really think I've seen a coming of age of student entrepreneurship at U of M. I came to U of M in July of 2012. And for most of that time, I was responsible for entrepreneurship programs that faced the faculty, the PhDs, and the postdocs. But I got to see kind of what was happening in TechArb over those years. And 5 years ago, TechArb was an incubator, kind of a co-working space. We did a little bit of programming and curriculum, some mentorship. But over the last 2 years, I have seen the quantity and the quality of student teams coming into TechArb literally go through the roof. And obviously that's a big credit to you, the students who are in this, and I think it's really reflective of a maturing of the student entrepreneurship scene at Michigan, and TechArb now can be that pinnacle program where the best come and really see if they can launch a venture. This cohort also, I had the great fortune to try to teach a short course at the beginning, and I was stunned at the sophistication of the teams that were coming in. It was way beyond anything I had seen in the past, and it really rivals anything the faculty or the PhDs or the postdocs do. Shh, don't tell them I said that. So you guys are doing really great work. And of course, most of that credit does go to you, the teams, but there's another person that a lot of the credit goes to, and that's the TechArb director, Ryan Gorley. Ryan has done, yeah. Really under Ryan's leadership, TechArb really has matured from an incubator into a true technology accelerator with rigorous programming, great mentorship, a well-defined program, and it shows. And I think all of us in this room are going to see that in the pitches. But without further ado, let me have Ryan come up here. Ryan, it's your show. Thank you.
Thank you, Jonathan, and thank you all for coming here today. It certainly means a lot to me personally to have you here, but above that, much more importantly than that, I know it means a lot to our students. Especially as crazy as this week is here at Michigan, and as crazy as this weather is that we're having. As Jonathan alluded to, the program has become increasingly rigorous over the past couple of years, and well, I'm probably partly to blame for that. Really, I think that you all deserve most of the blame for it. Because you see, you guys continuously impress me each and every day with both what you go after and what you get. You are always pushing the bar higher, and rising to the challenge. And so every day I think, okay, I can't ask any more of these guys. They've met the threshold, and then you go and prove me wrong, and I continuously have to raise the bar higher. And I think that ultimately that's what we're here to celebrate today, right? It's you guys as individuals and your individual achievements, but also the activity of entrepreneurship as a whole and your contributions to that endeavor. That's what entrepreneurship is about. It's about going farther, going higher, pushing faster, pushing harder, pushing the envelope of what we previously thought was possible. And each day I've witnessed you guys come in, and you say, effectively with the way you carry yourselves, today is a great day, today's a good day. But you know what? It's not good enough. Tomorrow's going to be better. And I'm going to work my butt off today to make it so. And it's about never being satisfied with the status quo, about discovering real problems in the world and then going out and tackling them, no matter the odds, no matter how treacherous or long the journey is, about continuously, tirelessly reaching higher. So, and it's the spirit and the passion and the energy, the drive, the determination, the forcefulness with which you guys bring to it each day that is particularly remarkable to me. And for those of you who haven't had the privilege and the pleasure of working with these guys every day, I have to tell you, this is a very passionate, positive bunch. And that's remarkable because of the problems, precisely because of the problems they're working on. These guys are tackling death and disease and loneliness and disability, not really, pleasant things. No, in all honesty, some of humanity's most vexing problems. And these guys are tackling it with an indomitable spirit and a tenacity that is really admirable, and it impresses me every day. And I think you'll agree. You've already had a chance to meet many of them, and you'll get a deeper dive into 5 of our cohort, 5 companies from our cohort in their presentations. And I'll say that if you're impressed today, just wait till you see what they wake up and tackle tomorrow. I would now like to announce our first presenter, which is Holly Price of Sage and Grace.
Thank you, Ryan. Are y'all able to hear me? Good. Okay. Hi, I'm Holly Price. I think we wanted to start on a high note and talk about the funeral industry startup first. So I'm going to talk today about an uncomfortable subject that unfortunately will be relevant or has already been relevant for most of the people in this room, funeral planning. A slight clarification, I'm not trying to tackle death per se, but really just helping people navigate that process a little bit easier. My company, Sage and Grace, is a digital marketplace that helps grieving individuals navigate the process of funeral planning, which is always complex, often very traumatic, and typically somewhat predatory. Okay, the process goes something like this. Most people experience a loss, and then a family member finds themselves saddled with the obligation of having to plan a funeral. Most people have not thought about it until the need presents itself, and they start the process by trying to go online. They may do a little bit of online research. What they will find is that there is not a lot of information. It is intentionally obscure, and it pushes them to lean on their network and maybe call 1, maybe 2 funeral homes to ask them to help guide them through the process. So this person has a lot of questions. They land with 1 funeral home. They're not doing a lot of shopping around. And then the funeral home director that they work with really guides the rest of that process. So in this case, they maybe get cremated and then they get buried. And you can see kind of those bars represent that there's not a lot of fluctuation or research happening at that point. This is a process that if you don't know what you're doing, it can be quite expensive. The average funeral costs $10,000 in America. This is a price that's increased almost 30% in the past decade. And it's a price that ranges up to 80% in a single geographic market. What that means is for that person on the previous slide, when they land with one funeral home, depending on who they land with, they may pay up to an 80% difference. For a lot of people, the average American, the Washington Post recently did a study that the average American doesn't have access to $400 in emergency savings. So you can see the implications of people that don't know what they're doing and are trusting someone to guide them through the process when the process can be so expensive. NPR recently did a very big investigation on this. The title of the investigation was, "You could pay thousands less for a funeral just by crossing the street." They described the system as confusing, unhelpful, seems designed to be impenetrable. I don't think that it needs to stay like that. This is an industry that does $20 billion of revenue every year in America. That's just funeral homes, crematories, and cremations. You see outside of that circle, there's a lot of different other decisions that families have to make, and this maze can feel impenetrable and confusing, and people are often really overwhelmed by the process, and that's where Sage and Grace comes in. So this is the latest mock-up for what Sage and Grace would look like. You would put in your zip code at the top, you would filter down your criteria, and you'd get some results back. In this example, you can see 3 of them have this little marker for the Sage and Grace seal of approval, and Southwest Memorials does not. This is my hometown of Houston, and you can see these 4 options are all probably within 10 or 15 minutes of each other. And if you are completely open to driving 10 minutes away, the difference ranges from 4,200 to 9,200. If it's truly the exact same level of service, I personally would prefer to pay 4,200 than 9,200. And maybe it isn't the same level of service. Maybe you have the money and you want to pay a little bit more, but you're looking for a higher quality of service, or you're maybe, because of your culture or because of your background or the person that passed away that had something super unique about them, you want to have that information going into it. So if you had double-clicked on one of these, you would end up with this screen. Currently, what's available online is just this contact information at the top. If you drill down, this is the type of information that we would collect about each funeral home on the platform so that people could navigate this process and make an informed decision walking into the door. At scale, Sage and Grace will offer 4 key pillars. The first is education, so just helping people understand when we say viewing, what does that mean? What is a green burial? The second are tools and templates, so what should you expect walking in the door? When they give you a package that says $10,000, what does that actually mean? If I only have $4,000 to spend on this, where should I begin making some cuts? The third is what you saw, that's kind of the secret sauce, is these local vendor profiles that is not currently available online, building that out so that people know who they're going to call, and maybe you increase the chances that you end up with somebody reputable. And then the fourth are these concierge services. So people have told me things in the process of researching this, like, I would have paid you $1,000 if you could have just come with me and my family to the funeral home to advocate for us and tell us if we were doing something that was off base. Or if you could have designed a video tribute, a memorial site, an obituary that didn't look like it came out of the 80s, I would have paid you $500. So that's kind of these other alternative services that frankly is kind of a big question mark for me, and it's something that has become a bigger part of the plan based on customer discovery. How will Sage and Grace make money? This is a model that's been really designed and well proven in other types of industry. Parallels are TrueCar.com for car purchases or the Not.com for wedding purchases. The primary source of revenue would come from advertising with trusted funeral partners that meet a certain level of criteria. The second would be those concierge fees that you get that I talked about previously, where individuals are paying for a certain type of service. And then the third would be affiliate sales. So currently, there's kind of weird products, and I should have done a trigger warning at the beginning of this, that this topic gets very weird very fast. But things like customized cremation urns that are currently being sold on Etsy that people don't even know is available. And because people aren't planning ahead, they're trying to get through this process so quickly that they don't even know to search for some of these things. If Sage and Grace is truly a one-stop shop for all of these different types of decisions, why would it also not offer different types of products that are currently getting lost in the fray on Amazon and Etsy? I won't drain this slide, but this gives you a sense of how we're looking to scale in the next 5 years. Competitors that have tried to enter this space tried to scale nationally at the very beginning, and I think that that's a risk, and I think that's what's caused some of those competitors to go out of business. We would start only in one city and really nail down this business model and iron out some of the kinks in it before we start scaling. And then focusing on a city-by-city level, getting to know each sort of ecosystem and really mapping that out really, really well before we move on to the next city. You see those 3 sources of revenue that I talked about, and in 5 years, I believe that without much outside backing, this could be doing $2.5 million in revenue at a 70% gross margin. Where do we go from here? So I graduate tomorrow, and I will be spending the next 3 months working on building out a prototype and testing a lot of these hypotheses that I spent a lot of time talking to people about, but not really seeing our customers going to this. Is it something that they're using? A huge challenge is my user is grieving, and they may not remember to eat, so how are they going to remember to kind of navigate this really complex, confusing site? How can I make Sage and Grace as intuitive as possible and as user-friendly as possible so that they're able to navigate that in their kind of unique state of mind? From there, we will launch. The funeral home partners that I've been talking with have said things like, I would never pay for this unless you could show me that people are actually using it and there's conversion. So if we can build out something that people are using, then start having some of those conversations towards the end of 2017. And then in 2018, if everything's going well, start rolling out to other cities like I showed in the previous slide. Who am I? So I'm graduating with my MBA. I have 6 years of experience doing technology, consulting, and project management. I have a tech background, and I've spent the past 2 years kind of building out my business expertise. I do not come from the funeral industry. I look quite different from most of the people that I talk to in the funeral industry, but I've been heavily leaning on the industry and experts to kind of supplement my knowledge, and I would argue that I have a competitive advantage because I don't come from the funeral industry, because I'm looking at some of these problems in a new way, where the average funeral home director is 3rd generation, and they've been doing this for 100 years, and they're kind of stuck in their box and trying to figure out, does social media fit in their plan? How would they use technology if they wanted to? In closing, I want to just kind of retouch on my vision. I think that the funeral industry has a lot of potential to get a certain level of transparency that was available for me online when I planned my wedding, or when I bought a car, or when I decided where I wanted to go to lunch yesterday. And that does not exist for a similarly huge transaction that many, many millions of people have to deal with every single year. And I believe that Sage and Grace can be the leader in bringing that level of transparency to this industry. Thank you.
Thank you, Holly. All right, next up we have Jordan Golshin with Step 4. And you want this.
Highlighter green came out of nowhere. Sorry guys, I've never seen that color before, I swear. It's on now? Okay. Cool. So hi everyone, I'm Jordan Golshin. I'm a senior at the Ross School of Business for tomorrow, and I'm also a co-founder of Step 4, where changing the world starts at your feet. So just by a show of hands, people in the room, how many of you shop at either Walmart or Target? Okay, a lot of hands. Now, how many of you know how much these companies donate each year and to what causes? No takers? These companies are among America's most generous companies, donating hundreds of millions of dollars a year, and yet nobody knows anything about it. And this is a real problem for them, because 84% of consumers consider corporate social responsibility, or CSR, when determining where to shop and what to buy. 83% want companies None of these options are truly engaging. This is the problem with CSR today, and we're not the only people who notice this. In order for CSR to be effective, it needs to be engaging. But up until now, there hasn't been a solution that allows companies to involve consumers in their corporate social responsibility on a widespread level. That's where step 4 steps in. Step 4 is a mobile app that allows companies to create consumer engaging charitable campaigns. So for example, a company can pledge to donate $10,000 to the American Cancer Society if users collectively walk 100 million steps. You can then download the app and join the campaign. Step 4 will automatically collect your steps from your Fitbit or wearable device or smartphone and add those steps to the campaign total. When the campaign goal is met, the campaign ends and the donation is paid. While users are on the app, they're going to have access to some other engaging features. For example, they can pick their step goal, their daily step goal, and see how close they get to hitting that each day. They have access to a newsfeed where you can receive updates from the company or the charity of what they've been up to. And you can join teams and compete in teams or individually with other people to kind of get that competitive drive going. So what's the purpose? Step 4's purpose is threefold. The first is to maximize the marketing value of every dollar spent on corporate donations by giving companies access to a more engaging form of marketing their donations. The second is to encourage users to be more visually active in their daily lives by tying their steps to something greater than themselves. And finally, it's to provide nonprofits with a free resource for effective marketing. Nonprofits are under a lot of pressure to keep their overhead costs low, which means that they don't have the capital to spend on things like marketing. So we're going to be giving them access to that when they use Step 4 app. So what's the market for this? In 2014, companies donated about $18 billion, reflecting a 13.7% growth rate. But what we found even more interesting than that is when you look at the companies that actually measured the impact of their corporate responsibility on their business, those companies donated 40% more in 2014 than in 2012. So that's 3 times the actual market growth rate. So what we're seeing is that companies that are focusing on how their CSR impacts their profitability are donating more over time. Our revenue model is similar to most social media sites out there right now. The app is free to all users on iOS and Android, and we generate revenue by charging companies a marketing fee for user engagement. So similarly to how they pay for impressions on Facebook, they'd be allocating that budget to Step 4 instead. So some of our milestones and next steps. We just came out of a 1-week-long pilot campaign with the American Cancer Society for their M Relay event, which happened April 8th. And that was a really exciting moment for us because we were able to actually work with a company, Movement Cycling, which is a local Ann Arbor cycling studio that everyone should check out, and also working with a charity as big as American Cancer Society. And then on top of that, getting feedback from people who are actually doing application. And so we're going to be spending the summer kind of iterating on that and working with American Cancer Society on a few campaigns that are coming up for next year. Our team is particularly well equipped to handle this problem. We are a very diverse team with skill sets ranging from business, marketing, and sales to behavioral change technology, health informatics, development, and design. We've been working on this project for the past couple of years now, and we could not have done it without the help of the entrepreneurial community here in Michigan, from Celery Institute, TechArb, Optimize, CFB, Deal, the Law Clinic that's been helping us with the plethora of legal things that we need to go through now. We couldn't have been able to handle being full-time students and entrepreneurs without the support of the community of people in this room. So thank you so much for taking the time to listen to me, and I hope I get a chance to talk to you guys after this.
Thank you, Jordan. Next up, we have Dom Paris with Arborthotics. Take it away, Dom.
Hey, my name is Dom Paris, founder and CEO of Arborthotics, and we're trying to connect, or we are planning to connect healthcare providers with 3D printing to reduce cost. So, I'm going to talk about a problem today that affects a lot of people. 1 in 15 children, 6.4%, have moderate to severe positional plagiocephaly. In the US alone, that's 250,000 kids, and 35,000 that have a very severe case, which is going to lead to some sort of developmental issues. So positional plagiocephaly is basically, or commonly referred to as flat head syndrome, and it's misshapen head or abnormally shaped. It's congenital and affects a lot of people today. But they treat these with these little baby helmets, cranial remolding orthoses. So these are prescribed by occupational therapists or orthotists, and they're typically prescribed at 3 to 6 months of age. And these are designed to guide the proper growth in the child's head, and they're quite effective. The problem is that there's only about 20,000 of them prescribed today. And with 35,000 kids with a severe case of this, there's at least 15,000, even if those helmets are going to the most severe cases, there's 15,000 who are not seeing treatment today. And we wanted to figure out why. Well, it turns out that it's a very complicated manufacturing process. So when we started this project, when we started this journey through TechArb, we thought what we had was a decent product idea, and they preached right away customer discovery is important. So we started talking to people. One person we talked to that was really helpful for us was the clinical director of orthotics and prosthetics at Seattle's Children's, and she told us for a fixed reimbursement of $900, which is supposed to cover the entire treatment, which is 6 months of follow-up appointments, the initial measurement, also procuring the helmet, that the helmets cost them $800. So almost the entire treatment is at a loss. This is a huge problem today. There's a lot of other reasons why we believe that there's not as many as there are. There's a bit of a stigma to the parents. They don't want their child, all their pictures at a young age, to have a helmet on their kids. The orthotists are trying to prescribe as many as they can, but it's tough. If they're taking a loss, you can only stay in business so long. And then there's the manufacturers who, it turns out, it's not the easiest thing to manufacture. So each of these devices is custom made to the patient's head, patient's anatomy, and the manufacturing process does not scale well. So we dug a little deeper. Turns out that the cranial remolding orthosis is the only FDA-regulated device in all of orthotics. There's other prosthetics with microchips in them that are regulated, but most orthotists do the manufacturing themselves. And these helmets, they have to outsource their manufacturing, and that adds cost. In addition to that, the manufacturing process, again, is very manual. So today, there's about a 5 to 10 day turnaround time for these devices, and these yellow steps are kind of the manual manufacturing pieces here. Basically, they take scans from the clinics and carve out a foam model of the child's head. Then they wrap that in heat-treated plastic, wrap that in heat-treated foam, bake it in a furnace, pull it out, and trim away to get the final helmet shape. On average, it's about 5 to 10 day turnaround time and about $500 per device. So we at Arborthotics are connecting healthcare providers with 3D printing through the cloud. And in doing so, we can bring together all the benefits of the cloud. We can automate the process as much as we can. We can make sure that it's secure and reliable. And there's really a lot of benefits there. We're taking a manual process and we're making it data-driven. And in doing so, we can reduce the cost. So by using 3D printing, we can offer same-day or next-day turnaround time and reduce the clinic-facing cost by 50%, which is truly tremendous. Here's an example of an early prototype we had. This helmet was generated algorithmically. The model for this was algorithmically generated, provided by scans from U of M Orthotics Prosthetics Center, and proof of concept right here that we can take scans and print a helmet. You may be wondering how big this market is. Well, for the baby helmets, at $250 a pop, it's about a $5 million market, but that's with the 20,000 today. It should be more like 100,000 helmets and about a $25 million market. But the broader custom orthotics and prosthetics is about a $1.25 billion market, so there's a lot more that we can grow to once we master the baby helmet production. As far as competitors go, there's kind of two sides of it. We've got the existing manufacturers who are FDA compliant and already producing these things. And then there's kind of software as a service 3D printing providers who are not FDA compliant, not manufacturing these, they're just providing the software. Whereas we are bringing both sides of it together. We're operating as a manufacturer who provides a software interface, and in doing so, we can cut across the cost of board. We plan on launching a pilot in the fall, and to get there, we'll be putting together an MVP so we can start iterating on this this summer. And once we have that pilot together, we can start to implement our quality validation, and we're actually working on the quality management system right now. plan to do our regulatory filings towards the end of this year so that we can provide this cost-saving benefits to clinics at the beginning of next year. But there's a broader picture here. So we're starting with something we know we can print today and something that we know works and that we know there's a market for. But in doing so, by making this a data-driven process, we can improve the user interfaces, improve how long it takes to prescribe these things, and hopefully cut cost in as many places as we can. We can also plan on printing other things from here, other orthotic devices, other basically any sort of custom manufactured devices. There's a high overhead there. And by using 3D printing, we can reduce that cost. Our team, so I have years of experience in product development, automated web systems. Brett here has a degree in business, focused on logistics, and also in computer science, where he has a computer security certification. My consultant, Eric, has years of experience in public policy, doing insurance regulation, currently planning on working for, or will be working for, a insurance big data company, so he really knows the ins and outs of that healthcare system. Ben here, great guy. He founded a national nonprofit, Blueprints for Pangea, which takes excess medical supplies from hospitals and ships them to the developing world. And so far, they've shipped millions of dollars. I think one of the best accomplishments he's had so far was recommending that we apply to TechArb. Last but not least, we've got Alex Going, who owns and operates a ISO-compliant manufacturing facility in Grand Rapids, and he's helping us automate our quality management system in exchange for helping automate parts of his. We have a budget planned for this of about $50,000, and I think that we can do this. So we've hired some software engineers to help us get to this pilot, and the quality management, the FDA process is the most expensive part, but in partnering with someone who's experienced and has done this before, I think we can cut down the cost there a lot. The biggest question right now is the 3D printing materials and the process there, which we're actively iterating on and improving that right now. And with that, I want to give a huge shout out to everyone who helped us. TechArb provided the printer that we could prototype with. Michigan Medicine, U of M Orthotics Prosthetics Center, we were really close with. And really, we just tried to leverage as many resources on campus, and it was tremendously valuable for us. It was huge. It was awesome. And yeah, thanks.
All right, thank you, Dom. Next up, we have Sharuvu.
Hello, everyone. I'm Samantha, and this is Kavya, and we are Cheruvu, Big Data for Small Farmers. We provide farm-specific nutrient management advice to small farmers in India. Our vision is to build resilient and sustainable villages by employing data science to improve small farmers. Just to give you a little bit of idea about the problem that we are trying to tackle, majority of 263 million farmers in India rely on less than 3 acres of land for their livelihood. Although, however, 97% of the farmers have not even heard of what exactly soil tests are, and they have never done the soil test. And they don't even know how tomorrow's weather is going to look like. So basically, farming is more like gambling to them because they don't have access to data at all. And overall, we are looking at Indian farmers right now, and the yield over there is extremely low as compared to other countries. For example, if we consider the cotton crops, the yield is about 200 kgs of cotton per acre as compared to 600 kgs of cotton per acre for China, who is the largest exporter of cotton. Cheruvu is trying to address these inefficiencies in the system by providing farm-specific nutrient management advice to small farmers. Our project starts by engaging with farmers, where we conduct engagement programs in different villages in India, and we do service for them, throughout the whole village, and we get to know what exactly, how exactly the yield is varying throughout the whole village. Through our surveys, we got to know that the yield is varying by almost 400% across the village. And in order to tell this information to all the farmers, we decided to prepare yield comparison sheets. These yield comparison sheets basically tell a farmer where exactly his yield stands as compared to the average yield and the highest yield in the village. After realizing the potential for improvement, farmers were extremely excited for our service. Our service is based on four different types of data. We do the soil test for all the farmers. We install weather stations in their villages. We digitize their maps, and we collect daily practices data from them. Depending on these about 83 different data points, we give nutrient management sheets back to them. Our nutrient management sheet is our main product, which kind of walks all the farmers through all the agricultural processes throughout the whole cropping season. So basically, we tell a farmer whole timeline for his particular farm. Like we'll tell them when exactly they should be sowing the seeds, when they should be tilling the land, and when they should be harvesting. We also tell them the information about how much fertilizer a particular farmer should be using on his farm, and everything is extremely farm specific. These nutrient management sheets are in Telugu because we were working on southern part of India where Telugu is spoken most prominently. So the main advantage of these nutrient management sheets is that everything is in extremely farmer-friendly units. So that even if the farmer doesn't know if he doesn't know how exactly to weigh a particular bag of fertilizer, he just knows that he has to use one bag or half a bag instead of just giving any kind of complicated information to them. And so as of now, we are working with about 3,600 farmers. And in last 1 month, we have sold our product to about 70 farmers back in India. And we have about 3,700 farmers already in the pipeline, and we are extremely excited about this. And depending on the feedback and using machine learning algorithms, we are trying to enhance our product. Local research shows that this product can increase the yield by 33 to 66% without increasing financial burden on the farmer. And Kavya will tell you a little bit about how exactly this reflects on our business model.
So as Samantha, can you guys hear me? So as Samantha told you, I'll be walking you through the market size that we've identified as well as our business model. So the total addressable cotton market is about $1.3 billion per year, and the serviceable operable market is $78 million per year, and this equates to 650,000 farmers. So our business model is a subscription-based service, and the farmers can opt for any one of the three services. So the basic is targeted for farmers who own lesser than 5 acres of land. The advanced is for farmers who own more than 5 acres of land. And the pro service is open to everybody, and this gives them additional remote sensing and on-demand data analytics services. This is our short-term plan, but our long-term business model is to capture the value our data contains and to see who's interested in the data that we're collecting. So which agribusiness like the seed, pesticide, and fertilizer manufacturers are interested to buy our data. And that's where we see ourselves in the long term, because as we collect more farmer information, we have more data points, and our machine learning algorithms become more accurate. So this is the graph on the right shows that we will be breaking even at the end of 2018 and we will be starting to generate revenue. But I want to tell you that this graph only shows you the income that we will be getting by charging the farmers directly. This does not contain the value that we have through our data. This is our team. We have 5 students from 4 different schools at University of Michigan, and our expertise is diversified. We have crop modeling to soil chemistry, geographic information systems to machine learning. We also have a co-founder who is on the ground in India, and he takes care of operations on the ground as well as coordinating work with 10 field managers that we have hired. And our advisors are from Michigan and India as well, and their expertise is varied, and their expertise complements what we need very, very well. So where we are right now is 3,600 farmers and 54 villages, but by 2022, we want to reach 13,000 villages and have 650,000 cotton farmers. We also want to diversify to other crops. We started off with cotton because our research was based on the cotton crop. We're starting this new cropping season in June 2017. We will be doing other crops as well. And we've built a web application, and this is our biggest market advantage, competitive advantage. Because what we're doing is we've realized that through our market research, the smartphone penetration in the region was 3%, now it's come up to 30%, but the farmers are not in a position to use our application.
So we have an intermediary layer called the field manager. They are between Cheruvu and the farmers. They collect the data from the farmers using weekly or bi-weekly phone calls. They enter the data into our web application, and we then get the data to analyze it. So what we want to do going forward is that we know the smartphone penetration is going to increase, and we will come to a day where the farmers will be able to use our app. So we want to have voice recognition capabilities, also to be able to develop an app that's in the local language that the farmer can understand. And given that we have 21 official languages, that is. So we've hired 10 field managers so far, and the ratio is 1 field manager to about 350 farmers. We want to decrease the dependency on labor, and we want to move to hiring 250 field managers and 5 software developers. So we've had huge help from TechArb, Optimize, and the Dowson State Free Fellows Program, and the Center for Entrepreneurship as well. It was really useful because the customer discovery course really guided us in understanding the value in our data and who would be interested in giving us the revenue that we're looking for and not just depending on the farmers for our data. That was our vision, to move away from charging the farmers and to see who else is interested in our data. So I want to thank TechArb. Thank you.
Give that one to Teresa. Thank you, Samhita and Kavya. Next up, we have Parisa with Find Your Ditto. You'll need that.
Hi, I'm the last one, so bear with me. My name is Parisa. I am a master's candidate in health informatics. I'm also graduating. So half of all adults in the US live with a chronic illness, anything from diabetes, depression, cancer, Crohn's. But you would never know because these illnesses are often invisible. One of my first experiences with invisible illness was when I met another student named Brianna last year. I was shocked because Brianna looked just like me, but her daily experiences managing multiple chronic conditions made her world and her academic experience vastly different. And in the chronic illness space, Brianna, like many other students, was dealing with what we call burnout. And when you're in a big university, you see that there's about 10% of all students drop out, and 64% of them are due to mental or emotional health concerns, whether it's due to physical illness, mental conditions, or otherwise. And this is about $700 million in lost tuition every year. And why is this? So there's a high ratio of undergraduates to mental health providers. There's an increased demand for better health services, but counseling centers are constantly understaffed and overtaxed. But we know that with increased peer support, the more individuals you have in your chronic illness journey, the higher your health outcomes. And that's where Find Your Ditto comes in. We match people who share the same chronic conditions for on-demand, in-person peer support. We're an adjunct resource to mobilize peer-peer support to ease the system burden so that administrators can focus on their most dire student needs. This is mental health spending in the US is very vast, and we're targeting Big 10 universities in the next 5 years and expanding to universities after that. And right now, this spending is not getting to the most critical students. Our launch strategy is a freemium model with universities, and then partnering with universities, selling to university health administrators in healthcare in certain disease-specific clinics, and partnering with local businesses to promote meetups and advertising through them. Our competitors, so right now there's traditional support groups, online platforms like Patients Like Me that do not focus on in-person connection, social media sites like Facebook and Twitter that have formed groups but don't have the privacy where you put your name and photo on a somewhat private topic. And groups like meetup.com where people have started forming communities. But we're trying to be the only on-demand, in-person peer support network. we'll be launching through university health, marketing through university health resources, digital marketing, having campus ambassadors to spread out throughout the nation, and advertising as a resource for students through syllabus and other tools on campus. Our team is myself and my co-founder, Brianna. We have experience in design, implementation, information science, and we are both either dealing with or have been touched by chronic illness. We've done low-tech pilots where we found 90% match rate on university campuses. So we've been matching conditions that are very common, like eating disorders, depression, anxiety, but also rare conditions like dysautonomia, where 1 in 50,000 people are diagnosed. We're ready for our beta launches, which will be happening in the next few months. We have a clinical pilot with Wayne State University with their suicide prevention group, and then endocrinology, connecting diabetes patients, and following that, gunshot victim youth in Detroit, which is an effort to mobilize peer-to-peer support and that camaraderie aspect, seeing as violence is high in Detroit in the summertime. So this is clinical data to help us as we prepare for university launches in the fall. While Brianna spent 4 long years without her ditto, her Me Too, within just a few weeks of launching our pilot, another student living with the same chronic conditions as Brianna signed up. And all it took was having a system like this in place to make it happen. And that's what we're doing. We're trying to create a world where no person living with chronic illness ever has to feel alone and can finally be able to say, it's not just me. Thank you.
All right, thank you, and let's give another warm round of applause to all of our presenters here. I'd next like to introduce Matt Gibson, who is Director of Education at the Center for Entrepreneurship. He is going to be announcing a couple awards here. And Allison, if we can.
All right. Well, I would like to take this opportunity to be able to present the Entrepreneur of the Year Awards from the Center for Entrepreneurship. Historically, we have often presented these awards at our Entrepreneurship Hour speaker series. However, this year when we looked at this award, it turns out that the recipients of the award have deep ties to TechArb and have been part of the TechArb Acceleration Program and have done extraordinarily well through that program as well. So we thought it would be particularly appropriate to present them with their awards here today, and we'd like to do that. We have both an undergraduate award and a graduate award, and so I'll begin with our undergraduate award. This year's recipient is a person who has an amazing amount of energy and persistence, but probably maybe his most defining characteristic is that I think he has a greater love for black soldier flies than anyone else I've ever met in the entire world. And so with that, I'd like to welcome Eric Katz, the founder of Kulisha. So Eric will receive this award of $2,500. And before I let Eric go, and you're welcome to take that for now. You know, Eric, I've had the chance to interact with Eric over the past couple of years, and to see his persistence and progress over the past couple of years has been really amazing. And in fact, when I became really convinced that Eric was really serious about this was when I literally just asked him that question. It's a question I ask almost every student venture I work with. I'll say, so what would it take for you to make this real? Because many of the ventures and entrepreneurs we work with, you know, they don't want it to be real. They like to tell you about their idea and kind of stop there. And certainly tonight we've seen students who move beyond that. And so I asked Eric, you know, what would it take for you to do this for real and not just talk about it? And he said, well, this summer I'm going to Kenya to run a pilot for this startup that I'm working on. And indeed he did. And he came back this past fall and shared the progress that he had made over the summer. And then he set up shop in the Wilson Center to run another pilot. And I became especially convinced when I had invited him to come to a workshop, and he reached out to us that morning and he said, I'm really sorry I can't come to the workshop today, but we've had a black soldier fly outbreak that I have to clean up, or else they're going to kick me off campus and you won't ever see me again. And so again, we knew Eric was serious about black flies. And for those of you who aren't familiar with Kalisha, what they're able to do is to take the organic waste from food and drink companies and to be able to use that to basically feed these black flies their larvae, which they're able to turn into protein for animal feed. And it's a pretty unique opportunity that they've identified. So please join me again in welcome and congratulating Eric Katz. I would also now like to be able to present our graduate award. Also goes to a student who, as I mentioned, has been involved in TechArb and has been successful throughout that program, as well as getting recognition across the university and, frankly, across the country for his dedication to really changing the way diagnostics happen in emergency care settings. And so I'd like to welcome Walker McHugh, the founder of Prediction Bio. So again, Walker will receive this award of $2,500. Congratulations, Walker. And again, being able to work with Walker over the past couple of years has been a lot of fun as well. I remember Walker coming to the Center for Entrepreneurship as he was early in the stages of graduate school and starting his research work, and telling me about this idea and this startup that he was working on. I have a background in biomedical engineering as well, and so we were kind of talking about these things, and what I quickly realized was that Walker was much smarter than I was, and so I had very little advice that I could actually give him that would be of any worth, but I also became convinced that he was going to go do some really remarkable things. And so it's been a wonderful journey to be able to see his dedication to really changing this diagnostic, or using this diagnostic tool that they've been developing to really have a big effect in a positive way for these emergency care settings. And so with that, congratulations, Walker. So with that, I'd like to welcome back Ryan Gorley.
Thank you, Matt. And for this next part of the event, we'd like to recognize all of the entrepreneurs in the program. That's you. As you're no doubt aware by now, TechArb requires a serious commitment on the part of its participants, and so we wanted to recognize and commend that commitment for everyone in the class. So teams, if you could please come up when Allison reads your name. We'll have you come up this way and then file over there and file behind the stage, please, and we'll hopefully get some nice photos out of it too. All right, thank you.
All right, we'll start things off with Adjacent, which is a virtual crowdsourced incubator that helps emerging entrepreneurs find a team of co-founders and advisors, validate their ideas, and build their venture with a personalized community. Next is Arborthotics, a new process to manufacture custom orthotic devices by connecting orthotists with 3D printing through the cloud. Next is Cheruvu, building resilient and sustainable villages by employing data science to improve profitability of small farmers in developing countries. Find Your Ditto, a mobile platform that connects individuals living with the same chronic illness locally for on-demand, in-person peer support. Flexel, a wearable device that measures real-time muscle activity and analyzes these biosignals to provide guidance for patients recovering from injury and analytical assessments to physical therapists. Forzametrics, a fit tech startup transforming the workout experiences by delivering data-driven fitness progression to people of all fitness levels. Gwydion, an augmented reality platform that will empower individuals, organizations, and institutions to solve problems, explore, and share with VR, AR in ways that have never been possible before. Protein Bits, an on-the-go, bite-sized protein snack made with the highest quality natural ingredients.
Let's keep it going for Ellis.
Sage and Grace, a digital marketplace and concierge service that educates and empowers grieving families to better and more affordably navigate the complications and stress of the American funeral planning process. And finally, Step 4, a mobile platform that allows users to translate their daily steps into charitable contributions backed by corporate sponsors.
All right, let's give them all another round of applause. Okay, and before we break to the fun part, the food, right? We need to present this class MVP award. And I'd like to thank the Brady family, Tom and Betsy Brady. They couldn't join us this afternoon, but the award is due to their generous contribution to the program, as well as the milestone awards that they'll all be receiving. And I should also point out the Entrepreneur of the Year awards were made possible by the Weiser family and RPM Ventures. Now, I mentioned earlier, I think you guys have gathered by this point, this is a fairly close-knit group, which has been particularly fun to work with and to see that develop over time. And it turns out they're pretty indecisive too. We had a three-way tie, if you can believe it, for the MVP. The MVP, I should mention, it goes to the team that most embodies the TechArb spirit and work ethic as voted by the class. And so today, I asked them to submit their votes, and we have a three-way tie. So that award is going to be shared by Arbor Thotics, Find Your Ditto, and Sage and Grace. So I think we gotta do this.
And before we go, so we